The Cleveland Browns made two moves in the same week, and the NFL couldn't believe what it was watching. They traded Jerry Jeudy to Atlanta, and before the ink was even dry, before the media could frame the Jeudy departure as a loss, they linked to KC Conception from Texas A&M and started building the case for Carnell Tate at pick 6. Two moves, same week, same direction, both pointing at the same quarterback. And this is Cleveland we're talking about. The franchise that gave Deshaun Watson $230 million and called it a swing and a miss. That had 4 quarterbacks in one season and fired the head coach. That drafted players like Jedrick Wills and never made the switch work. This is the franchise that has spent the better part of a decade being reactive, answering problems after they became crises instead of solving them before they did. And now, with Shedeur Sanders in the building, with Todd Monken installed as the truth-telling head coach, with Andrew Barry finally operating without Kevin Stefanski's influence, Cleveland just made a coordinated 2-move upgrade sequence that 31 other front offices are watching and trying to understand. This isn't the Browns being the Browns. This is something different, and the NFL just noticed. Because reports claim that the moment Jerry Jeudy was linked to Atlanta in exchange for a 2026 second-round pick, Cleveland immediately pivoted to targeting his replacement. Not weeks later, not after the draft media cycle cooled down, immediately. KC Conception from Texas A&M, a dewy tall receiver who averaged 15 yards per catch in 2025, became the name linked to Cleveland's pick at 24. That's the pick they already had, the second first-rounder. And suddenly, the picture became clear. This wasn't just moving a player who didn't fit. This was trading a Stefanski receiver back to Stefanski, collecting an asset, and using that asset flexibility to target a Monken receiver who fits the offensive system being built around Shedeur Sanders. That kind of sequencing, trade for value then immediately target the specific upgrade, is exactly what organizational coherence looks like. And Cleveland hasn't shown organizational coherence in longer than most fans can remember. But here's the part that makes this story bigger than just roster moves. Because the shock the NFL is experiencing isn't just about Cleveland being competent. It's about the coordination between what the coaching staff communicated publicly and what the front office executed immediately afterward. Days before these trades started circulating, Todd Monken stood at a podium and delivered one of the most straightforward coaching press conferences Cleveland has seen in years. He got asked about missing the head coach photo because of a haircut. He got asked about the perception that everything goes wrong in Cleveland, and his answer wasn't political. It wasn't coach speak, it was direct. How does a player stop a narrative, play well? How do we stop a narrative on offense, score? How do you stop a narrative of winning, win? It's pretty simple. That statement didn't come after the trades. It came before them. Monken set the standard publicly, and the front office answered with action. That coordination between coaching staff communication and front office execution is exactly what has been missing in Cleveland for 6 years. The NFL is shocked because they haven't seen it before. Not from this franchise. Not in this way. And the timing matters more than people realize. Because Cleveland making one good roster decision isn't news. Cleveland making one good roster decision would be expected in any offseason. But Cleveland making 2 coordinated roster decisions in the same week, in the same direction, as a unified response to a clearly identified need, that's something different. That's organizational coherence. And organizational coherence is what separates franchises that waste generational talent from franchises that build around it. The Jeudy trade alone doesn't shock the NFL. Moving a receiver who only had 2 touchdowns last season and whose best football came with Jameis Winston throwing him the ball, that makes sense for any team trying to upgrade. What shocks the league is the immediate targeting of his replacement with specific names, specific pick numbers, specific scheme fits for a Monken offense. Because it means the front office and coaching staff are aligned. It means the need was identified before the trade was made. It means Andrew Barry didn't just move Jeudy because the opportunity arose. He moved Jeudy because he already knew where the upgrade was coming from. And analysts breaking this down immediately understood what that sequencing revealed. Fox Sports laid out the trade framework. Jerry Jeudy to Atlanta for a 2026 second-round pick. Kevin Stefanski, now running the Falcons, wants a receiver he knows. He's aware of the ups and downs of Jerry Jeudy, and he needs a number 2 receiver behind Drake London. The question analysts asked was fair and honest. If you took Jerry Jeudy and threw him into the draft class as a prospect, where would you take him? If the answer is before pick 48, then trading a second-round pick for him makes sense. That's fair market valuation. And for Cleveland, getting a second-round pick for a player whose organizational loyalty was already questionable, whose touchdown production had collapsed, and whose best football was produced under a fired head coach, that's a clean organizational win. But the win isn't just the return. The win is what happens next. Because the moment that second-round pick lands in Cleveland, it doesn't sit idle. It becomes part of a draft strategy that specifically targets the upgrade Shedeur needs most. And that's where KC Conception enters the story. Conception isn't a consolation prize for losing Jeudy. He's the reason the trade made sense in the first place. 15 yards per catch in 2025. A versatile weapon with return game ability and the kind of multi-dimensional usage that Todd Monken's offense, built on principles he developed in Baltimore, specifically rewards. And the connection isn't accidental. Both Monken and offensive coordinator Travis Schweitzer have Baltimore ties. Conception fits exactly the profile of the kind of weapon that the Baltimore offense has deployed to devastating effect over the last 5 years. ESPN's Peter Schrager provided the connection, noting that Schweitzer and Monken could get creative with how they use Conception in this offense. That's not generic draft analysis. That's identifying a scheme-specific fit for a coaching staff that already knows how to maximize that kind of player. Reports suggest Conception is being targeted at pick 24, the second first-round pick Cleveland holds in this draft, and suddenly, the entire sequence becomes clear. Trade Jeudy to Atlanta. Get a second-round pick that creates draft capital flexibility. Use pick 24 on a receiver who fits the Monken system perfectly. And you still have pick 6 available for best player available, whether that's Carnell Tate, a left tackle, or a trade-back scenario that collects even more assets. That's not reactive roster management. That's proactive, coordinated, specifically targeted decision-making. And the NFL, watching this unfold in real time, is seeing something it doesn't associate with the Cleveland Browns. But there's a counter-argument that deserves acknowledgement because it's the right question to ask. An analyst close to this situation broke it down honestly. Shedeur Sanders needs a number 1 wide receiver. Right now, that's Jerry Jeudy. Do I see a receiver in this upcoming draft that's better than Jerry Jeudy? I really don't. But you can get Jerry Jeudy some help. At pick 6, you can draft Carnell Tate. At pick 24, you can get Denzel Boston. Sign a free agent receiver after the draft, and Shedeur Sanders will cook with that group. That's the alternative vision, and it's not incompatible with what Cleveland is doing. Because the second-round pick from Atlanta doesn't eliminate Carnell Tate at 6. It enhances the flexibility to take the best player available at 6, whether that's a receiver, a left tackle, or a trade-back scenario, and still address the receiving core at 24 with an upgraded target like KC Conception. Now here's the organizational story that makes the NFL's shot complete, and it requires understanding what Cleveland is building versus what other franchises have failed to build around similarly talented players. Travis Hunter was the most talented two-way player in college football history. Jacksonville gave up a first-round pick to get him, and then wasted his rookie season by not having a plan. 7 games, no clear role, no blueprint for how to use him. The pick that Cleveland now holds at number 6 came from Jacksonville. That pick exists because Jacksonville failed to maximize their asset. An analyst broke it down perfectly. They wasted Travis Hunter's rookie season. They didn't have a plan. All they had to do was call Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and say, "Give us the blueprint." What did you do to prepare Travis Hunter for a season like he had with you? That's all they needed to do. Jacksonville didn't call Coach Prime, they didn't have a plan, and Travis Hunter's talent got wasted. Now flip that to Shedeur's situation in Cleveland. The Browns have a plan. They hired Todd Monken, who tried to recruit Shedeur at Georgia, who is now building an offense around his skill set. They confirmed his facility presence. They structured the rep distribution around where things ended last year. They have been publicly communicating organizational commitment to Shedeur while simultaneously making the moves that back up that communication. Trade Jeudy, the Stefanski receiver, back to Stefanski. Get a second-round pick. Immediately target KC Conception at 24. Draft Carnell Tate at 6. Give Shedeur the weapons he needs on a coaching staff that's already told him publicly how a player stops a narrative. Play well, score, win. Jacksonville didn't call Coach Prime. Cleveland built their own version of the blueprint. And the NFL, watching both situations simultaneously, is shocked by the difference. Because this is the franchise that gave Deshaun Watson $230 million and watched that investment crater. This is the franchise that cycled through 4 quarterbacks in one season and fired a head coach after years of dysfunction. This is the franchise that has been the punchline of organizational incompetence jokes for longer than a generation of fans can remember. And now, in the span of 1 week, Cleveland made 2 coordinated roster moves that point in the same direction, support the same player, and execute the same vision that the coaching staff communicated publicly days before. That's not luck. That's not accident. That's organizational coherence. And 31 other NFL front offices just watched it happen and understood something about Cleveland that nobody expected to see this soon. The Browns made 2 moves in the same week, traded the Stefanski receiver back to Stefanski, collected a second-round pick, immediately targeted a scheme-specific replacement at pick 24, set up the draft board to give Shedeur Sanders the offensive environment he was never given in year 1. The NFL is shocked because nobody expected Cleveland to be this intentional this fast. Because the franchise that gave Watson $230 million and called it a swing, and a miss wasn't supposed to follow that with a clear-eyed, coordinated quarterback-first roster rebuild. But Monken said it and Barry executed it. And Shedeur Sanders is going to walk into year 2 with an offensive environment that actually matches what he showed everyone was possible in those final 7 games. Play well, score, win. The upgrade just started, and the rest of the NFL is watching.